Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is episode number 13 and we're going to get straight into it. We have a little bit more to sink into after last week was kind of a little bit more in between. A little bit of more of an in-between week, certainly up in European rugby stakes. But
I would argue in Southern Rugby as well. It was
probably true. Yeah, considering one of the fixtures coming up in Southern Rugby this week. Actually, there's a bit more excitement going on. And just also, a few teams were kind of resting as well. There were kind of a few odd results around Europe that you had to kind of, like, if you didn't see the games, you were going like, what happened there? Then watching it going like, oh, they rested a bunch of players. Oh, I see. That kind of thing happened quite a lot last week. But this week we're into finals mode. So we have a few things to discuss. We're going to start with the big one though, which would be the Champions Cup final between Clermont and Saracens. And there's an awful lot to say about this game. We have alluded to it before, but we've kind of been sitting on our opinions and letting them adjust for a little while. It's going to be an interesting, fun game. Both teams want to attack. Both teams, like we've alluded to before, want to win games by scoring tries, which means there's the makings for some good tries, certainly. And I think both teams attack well enough that both defences will be put under the pressure. I think at times I'm leaning more towards Saracens in terms of just getting the better of Clermont. I think Saracens' aggressive blitz defence will have a better chance of stifling Clermont's attack than the other way around. Because I don't know. Sometimes I think after the multi-phase, Clermont are good at scrambling, but there are a lot of gaps around the park as well when the other team managed to keep possession for a few phases.
The key for me in attack is the key difference, I suppose. Obviously, Clermont are more dynamic and electric and arguably more fun to watch. Mm-hmm. The thing that really sets Saracens apart is the decision making. It's when you have Farrell or Bosch or even Good on the ball, and there's an overlap, a 5-man overlap. They're really good at reading the game, and they have so many different ways of scoring. So they run that screenplay constantly, but they can give the inside ball or the outside ball. And then they also can grubber it in behind, which they do a lot as well. If you're shooting and trying to cut off the outside, they'll grubber it in behind. If you're drifting, they'll get it to those wide channels and cut inside your shoulders. And they're pretty consistent in taking the right option, which is, like, in a lot of senses, it's all that really separates the best teams from the good teams.
Simple to say that though as well, but also just
you've touched on that before with teams like Ireland. It's like when we're going around the corner, and it's all good build up and good attack, and then there's a chance to go wide where there's a certain try and they take it up again. That's sort of the difference between what Saracens do and what all the good teams do. Saracens also have a secret weapon in their dynamic loose forwards, and around the fringes you'll see Itoji and Billy Vunipola get offloads away,
and that's also what contributes to, I think, to the success of that loop play you're talking about, because the viability of those options. Like, if you're doing a double screen loop or a single screen loop and you have three options around you, and all of them are dynamic and all of them are ball players and all of them are dangerous, and like that's what makes defences sit down. And that's what gives me worries as well about Clermont's ability to defend this, because in the second half against us we consistently made inroads with that play, which is one that Saracens losing.
Rougerie in particular is getting on now.
He is getting on. He's not covering as much ground around the park.
Certainly when he gets tired, he might be liable to fall off some tackles. From Saracens' perspective in terms of how to defend Clermont, because we all know that Clermont are a pretty stellar attacking force. They're going to do what they do, which is this Wolfpack defense. Which it's very, very effective. We haven't really seen in at all really a high class operating attack that likes to exploit and work in the wide channels take on that defence. It's one of the reasons why we always, in the last couple of years, and especially this year really, when Leinster have been back to something near their best, wanted to see that game happen. Leinster against Saracens. Will that defence be able to stop what is a pretty dynamic attack? If Clermont operate at their best, it shouldn't, because again, a lot of what they do is trying to shut out those wide channels, and Clermont definitely have the ability to get outside that kind of defence, but they're not going to have a lot of time. And before they go wide, they really do like to set it up with those carries, those short carries, those one-out runners.
There'll be a few really good battles.
And if Saracens are stopping them behind the gain line, it's going to really put a lot of pressure on Lopez to maybe kick the ball, which I wouldn't advise, especially not early in the game.
Yeah.
But Lopez is not going to have a lot of time to operate at all.
No.
And it's arguably the biggest test of his career, I would say.
Yeah, certainly in terms of the stage he's on as well. That's probably certainly true.
We've been fans of Lopez all season, and for the last couple of years. I believe it was Perpignan who he burst onto the scene with a couple of years back.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But yeah, no, he's grown into his own anyway in terms, and even with France as well this season. France's resurgence is definitely what we were branding it here on this podcast. I think France had a really encouraging international season, and he was a huge part of that. He's a proper traditional French 10, and with Para inside him as well. It's a beautiful combo up in Clermont, and when they're purring, apologies for that. Computer's making sounds, but when he's purring, it's really, really hard to stop, especially with some of the potent backs he has outside him. Lamourad as well is another fine player. He's had a great season. But one of the big head to another big test. And do you know what's one head to head that I'm fascinated by is Vunipola and Fritz Lee, number 8s.
Very different. I don't even think those two are going to be the guys going head to head.
No, it's just not even head to head. It's in terms of who stamps their authority on the game. Like Fritz Lee will need to be disrupting Sarri's ball, slowing everything down. He needs to be in there, and he's very capable of that. He's pretty potent in that area, as we found out. He needs to have a similar game to what he had in the first half against us, and even moments in the second. And then for Vunipola as well, it's a different kind of game, but he needs to kind of get the offloads going, like we're saying himself and Itoje. When Sarries are at their most unstoppable, and when the ball is moving as quick as it possibly can be, it's when those little offloads in the tight are sticking through the likes of him, and he's making strong carries of 4 or 5 meters in the tight, and then getting a ball away so someone else can make another 3 meters on top of that. And that's where they make their serious inroads that teams thus far really haven't had an answer to. We haven't really seen that click for Sarries and them be stopped properly at all. We haven't really got to see that. So that's probably chief among the reasons that I'm finding myself leaning towards Sarries with this. My only other addendum to that is it's got to be Clermont's time. God damn it.
Well, that's not. It's
a bit of a facile argument,
it was Hillary Clinton's time too. The better team is going to win this game, but Clermont, they always have a big performance in them.
Yeah.
The thing is, if they come out firing a bit like Munster came out firing,
I don't think they'll make the same mistakes Munster make in terms of recognising that they'll need to score tries.
For sure.
I think Clermont will recognise that they need to score tries and score them early.
That is one of their paths to victories. Like if they come out, what Saracens are going to try to do early in the game is rack points up. I don't expect them to be using those attacking screens in the first quarter. I expect them to be kicking the ball quite a bit.
Yeah, especially in their own half. I'm expecting to see no rugby played by Sarries in their own half. I think they'll just kick it straight back to them.
Farrell is pretty competent at doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it does give a chance for spending on counter attack, and certainly when you're dealing with that organised defence.
The one chance you have to face a non-organised defence is
broken play is definitely a good opportunity for try scoring, and that's going to be a big test for Scott Spedding's.
And Abandonment's good in those areas as well, to his credit. And
for sure. And
they have some danger men.
Is Abandonment injured? Is it Strettle and
who's on the other wing?
No, Nakataki's injured, so I think it will be Abandonment. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, no, he's a good player in those areas particularly.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a bit soft in defence sometimes.
What Saracens will try and do is again, I was very impressed with Clermont's scrum and have been all year. So I think they're just going to look for parity in the scrum, but with Koch and Jamie George and Mako Vunipola, I don't think it's going to be that hard to achieve scrum parity, especially with the engine room they have. But in the line out, their maul has definitely been very proficient this year. In a year of not a lot of mauling across the board going on.
That's
Saracens
very true.
has probably been one of the more proficient in La Rochelle in Europe. So I do expect them early doors to be looking for penalties and looking for down the touchline mauls, get 3 points on the board, get 6 points on the board. That's probably going to be their first quarter strategy.
Yeah.
And then they grind you down, and that's what Saracens do. Even if it's at parity, even if it's 6-all and 3-all like we saw with Munster, they'll be the ones, play, and they'll grind you down.
Yeah.
Because when you discuss how to defend them, from a Clermont perspective, they've had a few defensive systems this year. Some of the times, arguably, in my opinion, when they're at their worst, they're just lining up man for man.
Mm-hmm.
They have also tried that Leinster shooter system,
mm-hmm.
and they've tried a drift system. Like, all of which against Saracens, they all leave their holes. Saracens against Glasgow, it was through the centre. Every time it was through the centre. They were taking those short options with the screen plays. They were either going outside them and then coming back in, or they were just going straight through.
Iceland did the same thing as England did with Scotland, it seems. Yeah.
And their support play was pretty good, and they pretty much tore Glasgow to shreds in the centre. But again, against Munster, we saw a few times in that first half them get outside them in the wide channels, and there was that play where I can't remember who it was, just dropped the ball when there was a try beckoning.
No, I can't recall right now. But they had a few of them as well.
That was a well worked try.
Essentially,
really, that was by going on the outside channels. And then, as we've discussed, if you're going to stack up the centres in the outside channels, they will pick it through the middle of you and suck you in.
Yeah, true.
So for Clermont, the tackles have to be
they have to stick. They have to hit and stick. And
arguably, I'm just thinking to myself, what is the best way to defend this Saracens team? And you cannot resource one area too much over another. But certainly, as you said, Fritz Lee is going to be very important in slowing up that ball and then perhaps harassing Owen Farrell and getting Owen Farrell in the mood.
Hitting Owen Farrell a few times early doors, Well, one thing about it, Sarries did very, very well in terms of shutting out Munster in the semi. It was a very professional, calm performance, the kind of performance that you'd expect from a champion calibre team, which is what they are. But they will be facing a side in Clermont who maybe won't bring the same innate physicality as a Munster first half, but they certainly do possess more avenues to tries than that Munster team do as well. So there needs to be a bit of wariness on that front, especially off turnover.
Clermont have a 20-minute blitz in most games, and it was at the start of the Leinster match. If they start the game at 100 miles an hour and Saracens don't. They're like Saracens. They're such a high pace and high operating, high functioning team that the offloads will stick at running speeds, and that's all it takes is to break a couple of tackles, to get a few good players on the front foot, to get the ball into the winger's hands, get spedding into the line at pace, and all of a sudden he might break through. And if they can do that to a perhaps somewhat lethargic Saracens defence in the early game and get a couple of tries on the board,
that's got to be their best path to victory is to get a pretty hot big lead early doors.
They can have that 20-minute blitz period at any point in the game, but I
think it does need to be one of our running theses on our theories on Clermont is that Para has only 50 to 60 minutes in him at this point. He's a very, very phenomenal fine player.
I think he has 20 minutes of high operating rugby in him. 50
in terms of playing at that unstoppable tempo, yes, maybe 20 minutes of that flow, but in terms of his decision making around the park, I think for 50-60 minutes he's fairly solid, and then after that you see some fatigue and you see some slippy passes, some not quite, you just see it fade off, and it is noticeable, and that's nothing to do with anything other than age, and they have demanded a lot of him. He's been pretty much a stalwart of that team, but it means that when they're if they're to win this game, they need him, and they need gone blank now.
Kevin
Lopez, thank you. Weird blank moment. But they need the two of them operating in tandem very, very well, and they need that happening in the first half. They need to be causing problems. They probably need to be keeping the ball for sustained periods as well. Especially if Sarries are going to kick to them from their own half, they need to make a point of trying to retain possession and just getting a few phases going.
That'll be part of Saracens' plan, though. Saracens will be okay with Clermont having a bit of ball in their half.
Yeah, it's true. Well, they were certainly okay with Munster doing it.
I don't think it's Clermont did. I know Leinster were terrible, but they did do a job on the Leinster line out. I understand that Saracens with Jamie George and with Maro Itoje and George Cruz, it's a high functioning unit. It's not something that's likely to be done. But when you have a weapon like Scott Spedding, I think that you should be exiting with the boot. I think you should be trying to find touch, trying to find those deep touch kicks, and maybe engaging with the kicking game a little bit, because Scott Spedding is one of the highest operators in the world.
Game.
So early doors, if Saracens are going to kick them the ball with Scott Spedding, kick it right back. But I would warn against contestables. I would definitely prefer to see, especially if you're deep in your half, Spedding find the touch finders and attack their line out, and we'll see what happens from there.
Or just find grass, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, again, like there's no guarantee that Saracens are going to come out and top in that game. Farrell is very good, obviously, but Alex Good is decent, but. Yeah, certainly Spedding is good enough that he can match them in that game. So I wouldn't. And
Bendenham's a fullback as well, and and on the other wing, Straddle's all right.
I mean, I would like to see Spedding do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, no, it's certainly going to be an entertaining contest with two teams, as we said, that do love to score tries and to go out there and make an impression on a game. And I know like Claremont have been involved in some fantastic games all season long. This team, I think they're probably. Claremont have been thereabouts for many years. Not entirely sold on the notion that this Claremont team are the best Claremont Auvergne outfit we've seen from all the years that they've been competitive, but at the same time they do seem to have a really genuine team ethos, and like I do buy into the culture over that club. I think they're playing some really good rugby, and they have a good combination of youth and experience there now. They've also been there many times before. They're desperate to get the monkey off their backs. Well, it's an intangible.
What's happened to Claremont in finals gone by is they have been sucked into an arm wrestle. Yeah, and
they never lose them, or they never win them even.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
Against the highest teams. I mean, they occasionally win them in club rugby when they get sucked into them, but it's not their game.
Yeah.
And if that happens, even like I'm advising the kicking game, but all of these have an addendum to them. Like I think John O'Gibbs has a really tough job this week. I'd be very impressed if they did see it out. A lot of it is dependent on whether or not they can just click, and whether or not Saracens are that one step off where they should be.
Yeah.
And if they can do that, obviously they're going to get a lot of purchase. But what's happened to them in finals gone by is they have got dragged into, whether it's like in the first 20 minutes it is this kicking game, there's not a lot of scores going on, maybe a penalty each way. They get involved in this forward game, they get involved in this set piece game.
Yeah.
And then, if you wrestle with a whatever, I can't even remember what the phrase is, but if you go down and play someone at their game, that it's very likely that they're going to be more adept at beating you at it.
That's very true.
That's true of Saracens. Those guys know how to manage a game of rugby.
That's it. Well, that was something we said in our previews of the semi-finals as well, was that in Claremont v Munster, in Sarries v Munster, there's both of those teams have a certain aspect of their ethos that's about negating what the opposition are doing and trying to step on them and throw them off their rhythm, whereas Leinster and Claremont are very much teams that are about getting into their own rhythm and playing at their own tempo and just doing their own thing. So that would be an error. And even some of this stuff on the kicking game as well, I feel it could be a recipe for disaster if Claremont start trying to adjust their strategy wholeheartedly or overthrow all their systems for the sake of trying to play against this Sarries team in certain kind of coy, clever ways. I just don't see that. I see that backfiring like it has done before. I think they're much better off going out there all guns blazing, leaving nothing left behind, similar to how we saw them open against Leinster, just not saying no for an answer and starting out helter-skelter and playing their own game.
Saracens, interestingly enough, rested people for what should have been a big game last week against Wasps, and coughed essentially through their home semi-final away. Well, you don't mind. They back themselves to win anywhere, and that's one of the things I like about Saracens.
It's true, yeah.
But against Claremont, they're going to have a lot of players very fresh. And if Claremont start at 100 miles an hour and Saracens shut them down, it's going to be a hugely demoralising thing. Again, like that kicking game was mostly about the first 20 minutes. But certainly, there are technical aspects to the game where they could get an advantage by taking the Saracens line out. Van Maheen has a big job to do, both in terms of trying to do that and trying to shut down their maul, because that is how Saracens are going to try and generate some early penalties, is using their maul from their line out. And if Van Maheen can get those long arms in and
doing the front crawl over,
the ball, again, that's one of the things that I'm not that impressed with Para about. Just that technical ability to be watching the ball constantly.
He tends to have his eyes on the back line a lot of the time. That's true. And he's not alone in that. There are a lot of modern scrum halves that are irritating in exactly that regard. They kind of too often one
of the cool things about the modern maul, if you're watching, you should just be watching. Like a lot of people just watch, is it rolling, is it rumbling, is it going forward? But what the entire battle that's going on is usually between two second rows in the
standing
middle.
upright in the centre.
Second row who'll be facing backwards, and his job used to be more or less to direct them all, but nowadays it's to battle the opposition.
To kind of play hand fighting with the other.
But if you're the opposition, if you're the scrum half of the attacking team, you've got to be watching, because as soon as he gets his arm on the ball carrier, like if he gets one arm on the ball carrier's shirt, it's like you got 5 seconds. You got 5 seconds, or it's going to be a scrum to the opposition, because he's going to get through. He's going to get his arms around the ball,
and then
there's nothing you can do. That ball's going down. You're not getting it back. It's a scrum to the opposition, and that's why scrum halves should be watching like a hawk.
Yeah, there are definite clues as well. You can see it happening, and you can very often see scrum halves communicating with their 10 while it's happening, and you're going, and some are better than others at it. Para, that's probably something he's been guilty of, but he's an old school scrum half as well. He's a product of a different era. But yeah, that's certainly true.
I'm not actually sure how proficient Wigglesworth is at it, but Van Mahina certainly should be looking to disrupt and stop that Saracens maul early doors. What was I going to say?
What else is there? Crossfield kick passes was another strategy we were discussing.
Well, this is the thing is, I was looking at the Saracens' defence a lot of the times, and I was just like literally looking into a few matches from this season, a few big matches. I'm just watching what happens when the other team has possession for maybe 5-6 minutes, and a lot of the time there is this like outside in rush from Saracens, and that's going to be something that might, like, if you see Cami Lopez catch the ball, line up one of those skip passes, and then realise it's not on and step in, and all of a sudden there's a flanker in his face, and boom, I'm back, I'm 5 metres behind my gain line. That's the kind of thing that Saracens want to see happen. But Clermont, again, with Rougerie and Lamarat, I do like Lamarat, I do like Rougerie, but again, I feel like those are guys who Saracens could get the better of. But if they are doing that rush, that kick pass could be crucial, because Clermont's game to a large extent does revolve around getting their wingers involved. And certainly that little kick pass is
from 10
fields,
straight to the
that
wing.
Bowen Barrett's been doing all season with the guys rushing out.
Windscreen wiper or windshield wiper pass, I think they call it down in Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, it's a great option. It is, especially against these high press defences.
Something like you want to talk about joueing. If in those early moments Saracens are rushing out, you're going to have to do something to get that defence to think about not. There needs to be
some heads up rugby from both. The two halfbacks, Para and Lopez, need to be heads up adjusting to what's the reality in front of them.
They're probably going to try some box kicks early doors as well.
Probably are.
Get some momentum with their wingers in the game.
Yeah, that could be one of the things that backfire.
Are like the anti-centres team in a lot of ways. The manner in which, like, if your attack revolves around your centres, it's really difficult to play Saracens. And that's something that Glasgow struggled with, is getting Hogg and Seymour in their game. They couldn't get it out to them because Finn Russell was being trapped. He couldn't give the ball to his centres because Saracens were right up in their face. And the kick pass is one of the negators
workarounds.
That has been so proficient this season.
It's high percentage, or not like a high tariff shot, especially in certain areas of the field.
No more so than trying to get it wide against the Sarries blitz.
It's true. Passing it, skip pass out to 13 from 10 can be just as devastating, if not more, because you get curbed behind the gain line. So there'll be adjustments that need to be made on I think the opening exchanges will be very, very interesting, and then from around 20 minutes in, I feel we'll probably get a sense. There'll already be a sense of who the winner will be.
Clermont with a lot of ball in their own half, one out runners, ball comes out to Lopez. Like, this is what you should look for. So if the ball comes out to Lopez and he's lining up a pass and he sees that it's not on and steps in and then gets flankered, that's the kind of thing that Sarries are going to only love to be seeing.
Maro Itoji just slicing him in half as he cuts back inside or something.
Indeed. And that's sort of their winning conditions. Again, Clermont needs to not do that. They need to be electric. They need to be heads up, and that's why I wouldn't mind to see them kicking the ball in the first 20, just to get Saracens to tone down a bit and then start getting them thinking.
Same as always, just vary it to keep that line honest. You need to do that.
If nothing happens in the first quarter, it will depend on what happens in the second and whether Clermont can change it up. Because if they try and do what Munster is and just go shot for shot with them, Saracens will find the winning score before you do, and we've seen that before. As far as the scrum is concerned, it's a really interesting battle. I've been very impressed with Clermont's scrum, as I've said. I do expect more or less parity there, but I wouldn't rule out either side.
I think Clermont, it's one of the areas that they feel they could probably target more than elsewhere against the Sarries team.
Certainly that is a path to victory for Clermont if they can mess up.
They can get a few scrum for penalties as well, which obviously French teams are only mad for scrumming for penalties. So. Yeah, that could be a stifling one. I'm very much interested in the first 20 minutes of this game. I feel like I'll learn an awful lot from there. and they're two fantastic teams as well, the deserving finalists. And I suppose we'll move on shortly enough, but just predictions. We'll do a prediction.
Well, yeah, just before we...
For one prediction, will there be a full stadium?
No. Well, I think we know that.
Probably not.
No, there hasn't been before. And it's like, it's not... It's a little unfortunate. Again, like, you go to Clermont, they are literally the best fans in Europe, but it's not... They're just not as adept at travelling. There will be some of them travelling, but it's not a rich town, so...
Yeah.
Again,
and then Sarries as well are...
Saracens are a franchise, mate. They have some fans. They don't have enough.
Yeah, it's not like a traditional club that has so much history going back many years, but it's a developing franchise. They've done great things in the last decade. So yeah,
most new Londoners joining the game, I think, might be joining on Sarries' side.
Bandwagon hoppers.
That's fine.
That's fine. We want people loving the game.
In the game.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, a couple quick notes in terms of key areas as well. Like, just as a reminder for Clermont, it's got to be Fritz Lee has got to that breakdown battle is going to be epic and huge, because Saracens are always going to look to do the same thing, especially if Clermont are getting caught. They're going to look at for those turnovers and those push factors. Benches obviously are going to be huge. Skulkbrit's coming off the bench for Sarries in particular is someone I really like. And again, that's another guy who could attack that breakdown.
Jackal, yeah.
Another Jackal, indeed.
And he's a serious carrier, great operator in the open field.
And then Clermont, in terms of defending, we've talked a lot about what happens with Clermont on the ball. There will be periods with Sarries on the ball, and they really cannot afford to miss that many tackles.
No. If you start falling off of Vunapola or
exactly, then Saracens will score tries. Yeah. So in terms of predictions, I think I'm going to go with both sides to score tries. I think Saracens are just that bit more technically good. I think I do expect them to shut them down. I do expect Clermont to hit maybe one score, but Saracens to get at least 2 tries. And I suppose 26-11 to Saracens is my goal.
One of those. Okay. I'm going to just be conversant and say Clermont are going to win it. I'm going to back them. I'm going to predict a few offloads attempted too early, a few Sarries offloads going to deck instead of going to hand, bit of disruption in scrum time, and a very impassioned and bold. A
lot of it's going to depend on the set piece and breakdown. Yeah. Like most games, those technical areas, if Clermont can get the upper hand there, then obviously they're going to have platform to score tries. And I think if either team have enough ball in the opposition half, they probably will score tries. But I do think that's more likely with Saracens.
Yeah, well, Sarries
are more likely to stop Clermont.
Yeah, then Clermont stops.
Saracens.
Yeah, well, Sarries already have their monkey off their back. Sure, they're champions. They're going for defending champions at the moment, and double and still. Whereas Clermont still have that monkey on their back, but I don't know. There's a lot of comments. I really do rate their coach. For one thing, more so than I have before.
John O'Gibbs.
John O'Gibbs.
I rate both of them.
I do. Like, I think they're actually great operators. But in terms of what Gibbs has brought to Clermont this year, I rate that. I like the halfback combination. I'm gonna just say I think it's their time, and I think they edge it by around 3 or 6 points.
Do you have a score?
No, I don't have a score, but I do agree with you that I think both sides are going to score tries. I don't think there'll be either side going tryless. I don't
Leinster,
predict like a Toulon Clermont type game.
Yeah. Leinster nearly did what we've been begging them not to do and went tryless this week.
Mr. P try came to the rescue, but it didn't come to the rescue. We were still hopeless.
Quick note before the Challenge Cup final as well. The top tours was finally decided this week, and we're about to pivot into Stade Francais. Just about missed out with a thrilling game against Montpellier, in which Nadolo bagged a bit of meat again. So those top tours playoffs are here, and it's going to be Montpellier v Racing and Toulon v Castres. And then if the home teams win there, it's going to be Clermont, Montpellier, and La Rochelle, Toulon. What I will say, the only thing that interests me is that Castres love this run.
They do.
They love this away run from the bottom of the playoffs to the final, and that path is there for them again. An away win in Toulon and away.
They seem to perform very well.
La Rochelle.
Yeah, La Rochelle. I kind of fear for now.
Yeah.
More like, and it's coming from. I think we said it last week as well. Like in terms of Sarries when they were playing badly around the turn of Christmas into the new year and stuff, and that was where we were coming from with. you predicting a kind of a less polished English machine, kind of a bit more balls to deck, a bit less assured on the ball, was coming from the fact that there were a few injuries, but Sarries as well were not playing well around Christmas, whereas this was the time that La Rochelle were just cruising through, winning games and collecting points. But now, when it comes to the business end of the season, we've seen some frailty from that team, and in the same way that conversely Sarries have slipped into the championship mode.
Colouring my view that a 33-1 bet on Cast to win the Top Couture from here seems crazy, but it's happened before a lot, and they just love going on these runs, and the path is just there for them. Toulon are so beatable, La Rochelle are going to be beatable, and then Cast in a final you just can't bet against. So I think a cheeky bet on Cast to go on a run and win the Top Couture.
Stop talking about it.
I'm just giving advice, but I think that's a good bet if you're interested.
It's a good bet. I do think that Cast are not going to win though. The bookies have it at 33-1. I would have it closer to 4-1, because I think they have a really good chance from where they are, and I think they just love it. They just love going on these end of season runs. I think I would have them slight favourites to beat Toulon, because such is my disappointment in Toulon. Toulon have been very disappointing.
And then if they're going
to
La Rochelle, I mean, they're going to have every chance to win that, and then they're playing Clermont in the final, and we all know what that entails. Yeah. So I mean, like, that path is definitely there for them. I'm not saying I think it's absolutely going to happen. I'm saying at 33-1, I think it's a bit of a steal.
There you go. Yeah, betting tips.
Yeah.
From Daragh. But yeah, no, we'll use that then to pivot into the other European final of the Tier 2, the Challenge Cup, which is another England v France clash. Where are the Welsh?
The Welsh teams, almost none of them qualified for the Heineken Cup this year. Only Scarlets did. So it was Ospreys, Cardiff and Dragons, and again, like Ospreys in particular, and Ospreys lost to Stade and Cardiff lost to Gloucester, and there you go, the Welsh teams. Again, not like they acting like they belong in the Heineken Cup, and yet they can't even get to the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup. So interesting.
Just a little bit of shade to throw.
It's born out of Celtic frustration. That's less bragging rights and more frustration. We want to see the Pro 12 well represented, and the Welsh clubs have consistently let us down.
Yeah, especially when considering, as Leinster fans, we've bore witness. We've been in the RDS for the greatest days in Ospreys club history. We've watched them. Literally the best performances any Ospreys side have ever played have been in the RDS against Leinster, winning those games. And when you see the way they play on those days, the fact that they can't muster a challenge or very often fail to qualify or emerge from their pool is just pathetically frustrating.
Glasgow and Connacht both acquitted themselves better in Europe this year than
absolutely.
Any of the Welsh teams, even though all the Welsh teams finished ahead of them.
Yeah, because the league does not lie. A league table doesn't lie, and they're obviously superior outfits than those two teams. But like, just something about that championship mindset.
Not a superior outfit to Glasgow. I mean, Glasgow just have no depth. So that Six Nations
period kills them stone dead.
Yeah.
But we do digress on that front. But yeah, basically now we're Challenge Cup as such. It's another England France clash. Gloucester, Stade Francais. It definitely is a cup below in terms of caliber. Like, neither of these sides are anywhere near as well rounded as the two that are in the final of the Champions Cup, as you'd expect.
No, and
but yeah, no, I just get it started. Like, both teams attack very, very well, and they have some world class operators in their backlines and through their pack as well. They kind of know what they're doing with ball in hand by and large, or know what they're trying to do. I feel defensively there are frailties in both. The defensive systems can be exposed, and that makes for exciting rugby. I do think that this one will be more so even than the final of the other game, with two teams who like to score tries obviously as well, but the defenses are acquit themselves so well that maybe they'll be hard to come by for the first while. I think the deadlock in terms of tries will be broken relatively early in this one, and I think it could be quite a high scoring game, quite a flamboyant game, quite a high paced game, and there would probably be a fair few errors.
Yeah, but, I mean, I look at this game. I honestly found this one really hard to preview. They're not two sides that have really been on my radar this year. Stade have obviously been on the march back from a position of roughly where Toulouse are, finishing the season about halfway through. So they're in some relatively good form. Gloucester again, they are exciting. When you look at their squad, there certainly are pieces of a good team.
Johnny May is fantastic.
Johnny May is a fantastic player. I mean,
Charlie Sharples
is actually not starting for them these days. He started last week, obviously, because they were resting a few players. They've got Billy Burns at 10. They've got James Hook. They've got a reasonable amount of decent.
They've
players.
Laidlaw as well, do they?
Greg Laidlaw is obviously a quality operator. Ross Moriarty is in the Welsh team and is a Lion. So they have the pieces of a good team to put together. Richard Hibbert as well, but they're like, for both sides, the reason this has been just so hard to call is just the inconsistency of both sides. Just I honestly don't know. The only thing that I can take is that I think that Stad in recent weeks have proven that they have probably a bit more clutch. But again, Gloucester did see off La Rochelle in that semi-final, so that is proof of clutch.
That's true.
But in a lot of the tight games that both sides have been involved with in recent weeks, Stad have come out on top where Gloucester's have come out behind, with the exception of that La Rochelle game. So I would probably give the edge to Stad.
Stad have also been in many finals and lost.
Both sides don't score as much as they should in the red zone. Both sides get into the red zone quite a bit. Both sides can look very exciting and very frustrating. Neither side manages the game particularly well. Both sides just jouet. Again, I think Stad have probably got better players. So
well,
again,
certainly if you look at that, like the halfbacks, Laidlaw and Billy Burns is a good mix of youth and experience. They've been trusting in Billy Burns, and he's been making them attack pretty well. Certainly in the middle of the field for Gloucester. I do rate what they have in Stad, in Genia and Plisson at 10 and 9 and 10. I think Plisson has grown into Plisson is one of those wildly inconsistent. So is Genia, but you know what? I like coming off the bench. One of the assets that I do like is Julian Dupuis. Comes off the bench at around 60 minutes, and Mornay Stain is there as well, which is obviously a ship steadier. But I really do rate Julien Dupuis, even though he's old and he even looks tired after his 10-minute stints for Stad these days, but he's a really, really good operator. I think he's very, very clever scrum half, and sometimes though that can be enough to just get them purring and get them moving. They also have some dynamic wingers out wide as well. They're they're very similar balanced teams. Sometimes they get bullied up in the tight against slightly more physical outfits, but I think that'll be negated by both of them in this instance. It'll be a matter of who plays well on the day. Will there be a few surprising players to step up in the pack, to have big monster games, a few really important steals, like whoever can get, I suppose, actively disrupt the other team's possession or slow them down or stifle them will probably get better inroads. That's who, Jeffrey Dimaru, this outside centre for Stad as well. He's a player I think is a really lovely player.
One of the things
really
that
traditional
Stad do,
wide
probably slightly
centre.
better than Gloucester, is they do make good off a lot of their line breaks. So when they do get line breaks, there is a good attacking instinct.
Clinical,
there. And again, they'll have Sergio Parise doing a lot in the heavy lifting in terms of carrying, sucking in defenders.
Yep. I expect him to have a monster game, given
exactly,
this could be his last ever final.
To win trophies, and this is like you talked about it with Clermont, and I didn't necessarily buy it. I definitely buy it more with Stad, that they're going to just be motivated to win one, because they've obviously come very close, and
especially even with the talk this year of the merger as well, the Racing 92 thing.
Well, they've been to 4 European finals, 2 Challenge Cup finals, and I was actually at their most recent final. It was in the RDS against Leinster, and I do remember watching them on the pitch. Now Leinster were head and shoulders a better team than them, didn't belong in that competition, and they won at 34-13, but Stad had most of the ball.
They did, yeah.
Leinster scored a couple of tries off counter-attack, but there was noticeable anger and frustration in the Stad players. More so, they weren't just joueing, they were not happy at the end of that game. They were gutted. They didn't feel that they'd acquitted themselves well enough, and I could see that in them, and I could see that in some of their fans. They wanted and believed they could win. And I certainly think that this time they do want a trophy. A trophy is a real thing, a tangible thing.
They have a much better. They have a more mature team. Like Plisson played that day as well in the RDS. So did Sergio. They have a lot of the same players who are there, but they also have. They're backed up, bolstered by a bit more depth now. They've been playing together more recently. They also just have a much better chance of winning this game against Gloucester than they ever did of going to the RDS and beating Leinster, especially Leinster in 2012, where they were just a cut above, and it was a bit unfortunate for them.
2013,
excuse me. But 2012-13 season was where I'm coming from.
I got you.
But no, they were just unfortunate enough to come across. So we were obviously didn't acquit ourselves well enough over Christmas and ended up in the wrong tournament. But they looked like a team that normally, like if they brought a game like that to the final and they kept that much ball, they could win it. And certainly against this Gloucester team, I feel they probably do have enough. So I kind of reckon I'm leaning towards Stad on this one.
Gloucester certainly have a strong pack.
Yeah,
I mean, like I look at the
history.
names,
History would suggest that the English teams are going to win these finals. You know?
Again, but Gloucester just have been so bizarrely inconsistent, and I do look at their team and I do see a lot of promise. I mean, you see Super Rugby winner Josh Honig is at number one. You know, Jeremy Thrush in the second row. They got Richard Hibbert, obviously. John Afoa. You know, big players. Again, Ben Morgan, who was at one point like the old Billy Vunipola for England. And you know, they're obviously solid players, but Gloucester, in terms of the evidence of what I've seen this season from both sides, especially in recent weeks, Gloucester are routinely losing games and Stad are starting to routinely win them. And even though they lost this week against Montpellier, they actually scored in the dying moments of the game, and Mornay Stain missed a kick to win. But what had actually happened is the final whistle had blown in the Racing game because they were going on simultaneously, and Stad essentially just learned that it didn't matter whether they won or lost. So even though they found that try, there was a bit of deflation, and then they just sort of, Mornay Stain just sort of hacked the ball away, and they were all fine. But
seems still a bit strange, but yeah.
Well, it was a bit strange. It was a bit of a strange thing, but they scored a try and they were jumping up and down happy, and then for whatever reason the news filtered on really quick that the final score had gone and Racing had won, so it didn't really matter what they did. And then he missed the kick under those circumstances, which is slightly different. But the point is, they found the winning try against one of the best teams in France in away.
Yeah, in the red,
which
red
is not something that Gloucester can do.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think,
and that was without Plisson, that was without Genia, that was without Bonneval. I mean, again, they've got a host of good players, and they've got good instincts, and you can see when they do pull off their scoring plays from line breaks, there's a lot of good, clever support running going on, and there's really good hands.
I think there's a really good tempo to how they play as well when they break the line.
In the middle of the season, they were so poor. Like they actually have one of the best winning records in the top tours in order to get to where they have gotten, because they went from about 12th to 13th right up the table. So again, as a team, they're quite together. They're now used to winning. They're used to putting on a good performance. Like it's possible that Gloucester's good players click and play well, but for me, the evidence seems to suggest that Stad are going to win this in perhaps a tight game, and perhaps, as you say, with a lot of tries. But it's also possible that there's just a lot of errors, and the inconsistency is why this is such a tough one to call. I just don't know.
It's true. Who makes more errors on the day? Who capitalizes on them better? You know. I definitely think there'll be a fair few players up for it. I don't doubt that we'll see some glimpses of magic from Sergio Parise. You know, there'll be a lot to watch, and as ever, I think the Challenge Cup final tends to make for just a bit more open rugby than its counterpart in the Champions Cup. I think the first 60 minutes of Champions Cup rugby or Champions Cup final rugby tend to reflect more of a Six Nations game a lot of the time, just in terms of the aesthetic of it. It's pretty tight.
Just go back to that Champions Cup final, I do predict a try in the first half. Two Saracens. Yeah.
Interesting. We'll see how that pans out. But yeah, no, this one is definitely, I feel, a bit more of a chaotic one, and a bit harder to call as such, because both teams have good and bad in equal measure, and you can cite loads of really good things that they do, but you can also look around at some of their performances and see some horrendous howlers as well. So you just don't know on the day how that's gonna manifest itself. But yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of just how often they've been there before as well. Even though they've lost every time they've been in a final, Stad, I think that experience in finals will stand to them. Just
interesting. Fourth ever meeting between these clubs, and Stad have won the first three. Is this final? Yeah,
I didn't know that stat either. Well, that's another bit of history that seems to lend credence to that prediction. Yeah, I'm gonna say Stade Francais, and I think I'm gonna say by around 10 points.
Yeah, but Gloucester, again, I'm literally just on the Challenge Cup website because I found these fights and kept them there. Gloucester have won 10 of their last 11 matches against top couture teams.
That's another interesting stat.
Yeah,
you know?
again, so these are all little things.
Yeah, I don't know.
But again, from these two sides, I just have to hark back to the inconsistency. I mean, I think if you're calling this, you're going in blind a little bit. I really don't know what's going to happen. It very much depends on who clicks on the day.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that Gloucester need to win to have a chance of qualifying for Europe.
Yeah.
And they will officially relegate Northampton to the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, if they win, kicking them off the qualifiers, Northampton, which would obviously be something that's deserved.
Yeah.
And then we could potentially have a rematch if Gloucester beat Stade, and then each of them win their respective playoffs against Cardiff and Connacht. Yeah. Then we could have a rematch in the Challenge Cup final in the playoff for the Heineken Cup, and it could go the other way. That would be interesting also. Yeah. I think both sides would rather qualify for the Heineken Cup than win this, but Gloucester obviously have to do both.
Yeah. Interesting little tidbit. I think we're going to move on because we're kind of pushed for time, but we're gonna just touch on. We have a few more subjects to do. We're gonna discuss what do we do first. We'll do the World Cup draw first, I think.
Okay.
So the World Cup draw obviously happened during the week. We learned what the pools will be, and from an Irish perspective, I'm gonna do a Jamie Heaslip fist bump. Even though he shouldn't have done that, and that was silly, but it couldn't have asked for much more, I guess. Scotland, Japan, the winner of Europe won, and playoff winner. It's obviously we avoided some of the clang howlers we could have got. Japan as hosts are tricky. I kind of enjoy the fact that we got Japan, if for no other reason than I think it adds a lot to the tour that's coming up this summer as well. I think adds a lot of importance to that, and I think Japan will be up for it in that sense. Scotland obviously beat us this year, and they've been progressing very nicely. They're probably a better outfit than Wales at the moment. Contentious enough to say, but I think they probably are, and they're certainly progressing more.
The table suggests.
It does. They're also, the thing about Scotland and Japan is they play this wide attacking game, which
what I
is
like about that is
tough
that it's going to force Ireland. It's going to force Joe Schmidt to change
the way we're defending and the way we're playing.
Because we talked a lot in recent years about Ireland being sort of the new South Africa in the absence of a South Africa.
Well, we saw
but the teams that have it's the styles of rugby that have poisoned that kind of rugby, the kind of rugby that Ireland play, the slow, deliberate kicking game that can grind it out against the best in the world.
When you come against a plucky underdog team that move the ball at speed.
You forget that South African team that was beaten by Japan did end up in a World Cup semi-final. But again, Japan can beat them just by with passes that stick, with exposing that defence in the wide channel.
Right, fronting up at scrum time with an organised scrum.
Yeah,
and that was enough to stifle them. And even the two tries that South Africa scored in that
against
game.
A conservative team and not making errors. It's very interesting.
And both of those sides will offer that. Probably Scotland to a slightly higher level.
Smart enough to know that it is going to require a bit of running rugby, a bit of taking them on, a bit of playing it cleverer than you would like to, and pinning them back and attacking their set piece as well with some good kicking rugby. But
it certainly do. Like we can't complain, nor should we. And we're tier 1 nation.
For the last 2 World Cups, Ireland, we've got totally fine runs to the semi-final and butchered them both. So I mean, I'm
remains to be seen how we mess this one up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm totally not like the draw is just another thing for me. Like I'm fine. The only thing that is probably true is that they're not going to do what they usually do and gas themselves out in one big performance. They shouldn't have to do that in this. And then the other thing that's true is Japan are going to be constantly improving, which might bend the Scottish priorities a little bit. Because
Scotland will probably be targeting the Japan game as being the big one for them to qualify.
Potentially. I mean,
possibly.
If they get better,
they get a sense,
if Gregor Townsend, they start to come second in Six Nations.
Well, like no one regards Ireland as unbeatable, and they're right not to. So they'll target whatever game they will, but it's a kind enough draw for us. The only other side of it is that the adjacent pool has New Zealand and South Africa, so that means if we do lose a game in that pool, we're going to have to play New Zealand, which would be curtains in terms of the semi-final run, I would imagine. That pool itself.
Do a little bit of problem solving as far as who's going to be in what group. The Europe 1 is going to be Romania, I would imagine. Europe 2 probably Spain or Russia. So again, you can sort of figure out who goes where. Is there a Europe 2? No, there is no more Europe 2. There's a repassage. That's how there's playoff and repassage. Playoff will be Tonga. Repassage last time was Uruguay. but it could conceivably be Spain or someone like that.
Right.
Yeah. But what's interesting here for me is that what's worth talking about is that Italy have an automatic place in the group, and it's a bit of a farce because with New Zealand and South Africa, Africa 1 is Namibia, and then they're going to get literally the bottom team to qualify, the repechage winner. So again, there's just three teams in that group, none of whom are actually a third tier team, none of whom are actually in a position to even have a close game against. So
it just means side. It'll be New Zealand v South Africa for the top spot in that group,
which isn't particularly anything really for them. So that's a terrible group, and the reason it's a terrible group is because of Italy having an automatic third seed spot. It really doesn't make sense to me that the third seeds, then why are Fiji not in it? This is again just prejudice against the Oceania sides. They are 10th in the world. So the teams that actually got the third place teams are 9th in the world, Argentina, 11th in the world, Japan, 12th in the world, Georgia, and 15th in the world, Italy. And 10th in the world still has to qualify. And like it's not a big deal for Fiji because they can just qualify. They're that good. And they will. They'll get the Oceania 1 spot. But the problem for me is that it puts them fourth seed.
Yeah.
So that group, Australia, Wales, Georgia, is going to have Oceania 1, which is going to be Fiji in it. And again, that means that is a way tougher group than the New Zealand South Africa group.
Absolutely. And it means
on the other side, there's going to be a lot of fun matches in that group.
Yeah, true. It's going to stifle again the South Sea Island teams. I reckon will be kind of ruined by the draw, by the turn. There'll be like a few short turnarounds and stuff that'll be annoying.
America's 1 is going to be Canada or USA, right? And then America's 2 is going to be Canada or USA. So that Pool D is going to have Canada or USA in it, Fiji in it, Georgia in it. Every single game in Pool D is going to be a good game.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe like Australia, USA or something like that. And then again, England, France, Argentina, Canada perhaps, and then another Oceania team, a Samoa or a Tonga. So we are slowly but surely getting to the stage where all five teams can compete, are competent.
Yeah,
and that is a great thing.
That was something that the last World Cup brought on in leaps and bounds and things like that. Japan win over South Africa were obviously big talismanic wins for that, but also there were some great contests between the lesser nations, and some of the games that you didn't quite expect to be as tight as they were ended up being as tight.
Look at Georgia. Georgia against Fiji is going to be so interesting, and then Fiji have beaten Wales before, of course, and Georgia obviously are physical enough and dominant enough.
Georgian scrum could cause serious trouble to both the Welsh and Australian scrum.
Mamuk Gorgodze announced his retirement from international rugby this week, by the way. And that's a great man. Deserved to have a shot in the Six Nations before the end of his career.
Didn't, though.
Yeah.
And that's another conversation to be repeated another time. But it's interesting. Obviously, there's still a ways to go. It's 2019 before the World Cup happens, but certainly from an Irish perspective, we're happy enough. Not overtly fist pumping, like not overtly fist pumping as Jamie Heaslip was. We're not putting our foot in our mouth.
Like I'm obviously glad, but we dodged New Zealand. Like we dodged the only team who were actually afraid to be in a group with, and England.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the draw was always going to be like, if it had been Wales and Argentina, I suppose that would be tough. Than what we have for sure. Argentina were the clanger team in the third tier that nobody wanted to get. But I mean, like Ireland, they've always been capable of getting to a semi-final, regardless of what group they've got. They're one of the top tier teams, so they've got to just go and do it. Yeah,
that's what we're still looking for from Ireland, is the ability to, when the emotion isn't involved, when it's not Paddy's Day and you're playing England in Croke Park or something, when that's not happening and you're just superior to a team technically, to go out there and demonstrate that clinically is something that consistently Irish teams fail to do. Not even Irish teams, the Irish team fail to do. Like Leinster do it routinely, Munster do it routinely. It's very frustrating that it hasn't translated thus far.
England obviously with the group of death draw getting Argentina, interesting enough. At the moment, I don't think they'd have much fears of beating both Argentina and France.
They have that Indian sign over Argentina and France as well.
Both of those sides are going to be building towards that World Cup, and both of those sides are on an upward curve. So
absolutely, I think, particularly Argentina's, I think, as well.
I think France particularly are much better than they have been this year.
Well, yeah, certainly this year was great in terms of, for the first time in probably close to 5-6 years, the trend has been this rather than kind of a slow decline. But there's still a ways to go. As we were saying, after the Six Nations, they're nowhere near the finished article, and they're not quite on the level of an Ireland or an England in that tournament yet. But obviously they do have the resources and the interest to keep that going. Argentina have been steadily growing ever since they've got into the Rugby Championship, and now with the Jaguares, struggling against the Sunwolves actually last weekend, which is a bit weird. But the Jaguares obviously being a thing,
Jaguares are starting to tire. But again, Argentina peak in World Cup years, and in their calendar year they peak during the Rugby Championship.
Yeah,
so they're actually quite good at managing that. But so the Jaguares are suffering for that reason, and did do last year as well.
Yeah. But it just helped. I think all signs point towards growth and progression for both of those sides leading up to it. So it'll be tough for England again. Not quite as demanding a group as they had in the World Cup just gone, but still going to make for interesting games. It's certainly a clash of styles with the likes of Argentina attacking out wide and France ideally jouing, and England trying to play this a physical, fast game.
Saracens rugby.
Total physical rugby and English rugby. That's a really interesting group in terms of who's in it.
But again,
some good
we
games.
can't really preview it beyond what we have done, because the only
they're not going to be the same teams.
I am very much enjoying the fact that we could have a group with a relatively competent Canada side, a highly competent Fiji side, and a very good Georgia side in it together, battling it out. That's good fun. And then Wales as well. Who knows what state they'll be in? And Australia obviously are in a bit of rags at the moment.
They need to make their rags to riches story.
A bit of a round robin, cool.
Yeah, there could be a few scalps taken by a few random teams, and that I wouldn't be surprised to see the likes of a Georgia beat Australia. Certainly, I wouldn't be surprised. I could see that happening.
Them, so
well, just at scrum time and in the tight, I think Georgia can match any team in the world.
Fiji have beaten Wales in the past.
Fiji have beaten Wales with their crazy basketball.
Fiji could beat Georgia. Like it could be this whole rigmarole.
Yeah.
So you don't know. Yeah. Of course, on the other hand, Wales and Australia
could just beat them all in tight games or in not so tight games. We don't know, and we don't know what teams are going to be playing. But the draw did happen, and that's the one thing we do know is where the tier 1, 2, 3 teams are stationed now. We're going to finish with just previewing one. I think we'll leave this till we're going to discuss the role of the scrum half. We're going to kind of get into that, but I think we're not going to have the time to do it any justice.
Right,
so we are going to touch on the preview of the game of the weekend as far as we're concerned. Well, I don't know if that's true, but certainly
they're my game of the weekend.
They're the two best teams in club teams in the world, if we're honest, and they're playing each other. It's the Crusaders versus the Hurricanes. New Zealand Conference, New Zealand derby, and it's like you said, you have it written there. Finally! ! An exciting game in Super Rugby. Yes, it's a great game, and between two.
It's actually like, as well as just being a great exhibition match, it matters for the New Zealand Conference
100%
in a big way. I think the loser of this game is going to find it hard to catch up. The Chiefs are top, but both of these sides have a game in hand on the Chiefs. I think this might be the Chiefs' bye week as well, so after this we'll know where we are. So the Chiefs are about 3 points clear of both sides. So the winner of this match again is going to go ahead, and the other team is going to be left in third. So it's going to be really, really interesting. Both sides really starting to come into their straps. Crusaders have been just this juggernaut, and the Hurricanes, through Bowden Barrett, have just been he's
nigh on unstoppable in terms of what we were crediting Sarries with in terms of their key thing in attack being just recognising what the right decision is and executing it. Bowden Barrett has been stellar at that all season. Literally, whether it be a cross kick across the pitch, or it be him tucking the ears back and going himself through a half gap, or the inside, he seems to pick the right option every time. He seems like a total 10, and with Pernara inside him as well, playing super well.
Richie Mo'unga is really just he's very solid. He's very good. He takes to the line quite nicely. He's more of a traditional 10.
Traditional New Zealand 10, I would say.
Crusaders use all of their backs quite well. They do attack through the centres a lot more than the Hurricanes would. And Goodhue and Bateman, is it? Yeah, Goodhue in particular. I think they've been just very it's been like
linked
this.
very
I've
well.
It. Like they're just scoring tries, and they just seem relatively unfazed by anything that's put before them so far. But again, it's routine. It's this wonderful, cool hybrid of structured moves and heads up rugby that they're working really well. Their support lines are really good. They're really good at retaining possession. Yeah,
building a multi-phase
being calm and finding the try winning score. Whereas the Hurricanes, they do run perfect support lines. In particular, TG Pernara is always running those great
he is
support
probably
lines.
the best in the world, I reckon, at that sweeping support line.
That's why he scores so many tries.
Exactly. He gets on the end of so many great moves.
And obviously, if Julian Sevilla and Corey Jane are finally hitting really, really top drawer form with that kick pass. The Hurricanes don't really use their centres that much. which is interesting for me. Again, everything that happens through our attack happens through Beauden Barrett. So as far as how to stop them, you tell me how to stop.
How do you stop
Beauden Barrett? But
I don't know.
As far as the centres are concerned, I think Lemapi and Asso not nearly as good as the Crusaders guys. The packs again, Artie Sevilla and Brad Shields, and these guys are going to be up against some Scott Barrett, who has been brilliant this season. Obviously, up against the Barrett brothers. It's going to be a lot of fun. Jordan Taufua as well, and Matt Todd in the Crusaders pack probably just have the edge. But as far as predictions are concerned, neither side has been tested enough. It's a learning game. It's finally seeing these two sides who have been just blowing away everything before them in good rugby.
Emphatic they've been doing it in emphatic style, but also two very different styles. Like you say, they play different rugby, and there seems to be a 1 to 15, a collective knowledge of what each is trying to do, and it's different from the other. So it makes for just that interesting clash of styles of a game that we really don't quite know how it's going to pan out.
Wonderful attacking teams, and yet so rarely are the New Zealand derbies like what you see with those South African derbies, where it's just try.
When you watch those South African derbies, though, there's so many frailties on that outside defensive line.
But then you see like the two best attacking teams in Super Rugby meet, and then you wonder, like, well, they haven't looked that competent defensively. Maybe they're just going to be tri-fest. It might not be. It might be 16-15. You might see them negate each other quite cleverly
for the first 60 minutes. It could be a try at around 55 minutes.
All Black test of the sevens. Even though Artie Sevilla is playing 8, they go up against Matt Todd. So it's like it's just going to be, it's a huge learning game for where both players and teams are at ahead of the Super Rugby team, and then obviously the June Internationals with the Lions tour.
It's a big chance as well. It's a big chance for a lot of players to make statements about putting their hands up for that as well. The likes of Jordy Barrett at 15 as well has had a really good season. He's in the mix. He's in the conversation at fullback. But
he's behind Damien
McKenzie is what I would reckon.
I would argue that he's probably behind Ben Smith, even though Ben Smith hasn't been playing well.
I prefer Ben Smith at 13 though. Like, if I'm the All Blacks coach,
centres haven't been quite.
Exactly.
But I mean, again, if you're looking at centres, you're looking
Crusaders.
Exactly.
They've been serious. They really have.
Exactly. So
it's a great game, and maybe you give the edge slightly to Crusaders just on the merit of at home. But
would you stop at your home?
I'm going to keep with at home.
I would give the Crusaders the edge because I think they're slightly the more rounded team. But betting against Barrett at the moment
seems like a foolhardy thing to do.
Most of the takeaway just from previewing this game is just watch it. Watch it, sit down, and
it's going to be a showcase of everything that New Zealand pioneering and innovation has led to. It's just modern rugby.
This is finally, because they've been putting on a show every week, but it's finally seeing the good teams meet each other. It's finally having a good game come out of this season between the two best teams in it, and it's probably a Super Rugby final preview, it's a Lions Tour preview, it's a New Zealand Rugby preview, and it's the most efficient teams playing each other in a big game that matters. And you're going to see, how do you stop Beauden Barrett? Maybe Crusaders will show you. How do you stop a high functioning attack that just scores tries? Maybe the Hurricanes will show you. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and I just recommend everybody watch it, record it. If you're not getting up on a Saturday morning, record it. And it's more worth a watch perhaps even than some of the finals going on this week.
Possibly true, especially given if you're interested in the Lions as well, and if you've been listening to our preview, if you heard us mention our 5 tour defeats bet that we're kind of hinging on.
This might be
evidence of that. This will be lend fuel to that fire. But it's going to be just two really world class teams playing against each other in a game that matters, and that's fascinating. That's going to be it for today. Sorry we didn't get into the role of the scrum half. We'll have to put a pin in that. We'll do that next week. We're going to try and incorporate a bit more of that into the podcast. Specifics.
We did the role of the 10 and 12. Is that all we've done as far as the role of is
Did we do the back 3? Did we discuss that at one point?
We may or may not have. I'm going to find them anyway and cut them out.
We're going to try and
make a playlist of the role of each whatever position, and we'll get through them all.
Absurd.
So the scrum half is up next. Be excited.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It's also changed a lot. The same as everything in the modern game is it's molded a bit into. They have to be a bit different roles than they even had to do 5 years ago. Have to do different jobs or double or triple job as well. So, but yeah, in the interest of this, we're looking forward to the weekend. There are obviously the final up in European rugby. It's the climax of European rugby season. as well as that, we have a great treat from down under, from down southern hemisphere. There are no treats coming from down under at the moment in terms of rugby, but this one is definitely worth the watch. So we'll be back next week. Not entirely sure what day, but we'll be back to kind of dissect all the action that happened. Well, we'll be
up on Friday next week.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say we'll leave it there. That was number 13. Sorry, it's a little shorter than the last one, just over an hour, but I don't know. Yeah, they're in and around the same ballpark.
There's a bit of 40-minute leeway. They're all over an hour.
Yeah.
I hope this one ends up being over an hour.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy the rugby.
We'll see you on the other side of it for Overlap Rugby number 14.
Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.